Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today for another episode of Next 7, where we share with you the many ways to support your health and vitality. I'm super excited today because I have with me another amazing healer and influencer, Anna House. How you doing?
Hey, great. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm glad to have you here. I want to just tell people a little bit about you for a second. You've been working in your field for over 25 years, providing curriculum-based coaching to parents and educators for advancing the personal growth and development of children, which I love. And you focus on the adult-child relationships to help create a space of whole family healing and personal transformation. This is what I'm picking up from all your bio stuff. You
Hmm.
also have experience as an early childhood educator, a Montessori teacher, you homeschool your own two kids, and you're well versed in other things like meditation and herbalism and polyvagal theory. We're going to talk about this stuff later in case people don't understand what that is. And then somatic experiencing. I wanted to also mention that you have a certificate in mind body coaching, and you've trained with Barbara Brennan School of Healing to enhance your skills as an energetic healer. Wow. No wonder 25 years.
Yeah, I
Takes a
know it's been a long journey.
it takes a while to get all that in there.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you got interested in becoming an early childhood educator. But before I go there,
Mhm.
I just want to say to people, the Next 7 podcast is really about bringing into people's awareness the different modalities of healing and health, keeping your health up. And of course, when people have kids, or if you're a teacher and you're dealing with kids, some of what you're bringing to the field is helping from a different angle, I would say, in trying to help keep a great balance between the adult-child relationship and how that can help a kid with their development. So I'm just tying that in a little bit for why on Next 7, this is part of health.
Yeah.
This is part of
This
well.
is it's such a big part of health and wellness, and especially as I talk more about my windy road that I took on this path of discovery for myself, recognizing that not only was my personal health such a huge key factor in providing my children with their optimal health. But this podcast is called Next 7. Like, we're looking to the future, 7 generations
Next
ahead.
7
How
generations.
are we really cultivating the fertile soil in which these children are growing and thriving? And what does that look like? What's our personal responsibility? And what is our collective responsibility as a community and a society to provide that for them?
I love that. So do you
Yeah.
want to start off with talking about how you got interested in being an early childhood educator?
Okay, sure.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah. The way I often talk about this is that it was like an aha moment I had in high school. So I was just a teenager, thinking about, how to fix the world, just seeing as a passionate teenager all the problems from pollution to war to like, how can we create a peaceful world? And what are we
Mhm.
really doing? Are we recycling? Are we singing kumbaya? Like, how are we going to really fix this? And this light bulb went off for me that at the time, as a teenager, my thoughts were adults are a hopeless cause. And our only chance for any kind of improvement in this world is to work with the children. And I
Aha.
just committed myself at that moment to finding ways to impact the lives of children.
Mhm.
And so I went to college for early childhood education with
Mhm.
this huge mission to create a more peaceful, just, and healthy world.
Okay. And so there's you're getting into the trenches, working with kids, and how did you get into thinking that focusing on the adults was the better target for helping kids?
This is like where the long journey begins its windy path. So, right out the gate in college, I met my partner. And we very quickly did the let's get married, have a kid trajectory happened really fast. So at
Mm.
20 years old, I was pregnant and I didn't have, I'll just say, I didn't have a lot of family support and it was causing me a lot of stress.
Mm.
And there was like this one critical moment, this tiny story where I broke into hives everywhere on my body.
Mm-mm.
And I called the primary care doctor I was working with at the time, and they said, "Oh, just take some Benadryl." And there was something inside me that went, "Oh, but I'm growing this tiny human. Why would I take all of these antihistamines, blocking all of this thing that my body's doing naturally? What impact will that have on this tiny human?" And I had heard from another young woman I had run into who was also pregnant, that she was working with a midwife. And at the time, this was 1999, I
Mhm.
opened the yellow pages of the actual phone book and looked under midwife and found the number for Dr. Laura Mann. And she became a real incredible mentor and guide for me on this
Mhm.
journey of like holistic health. And some of your listeners may know of her. She really was a foundational person in the larger community in Vermont and Burlington for holistic health, and especially for home births. And so that started me on this trajectory of thinking like, how can I do what's best for my child? And how can
Mm.
I really heal these generational wounds that are coming up for me that are impacting my physical health and
Yeah.
impacting my ability to be the best parent that I can be? So
Mhm.
there was this journey that took me down all these roads where I really set out to be a different kind of parent and also a different kind of educator. There was about 15 years of time there where I
Mm.
was exploring how to be the most, yeah, holistic parent, like provide real, concrete, holistic physical health for my child. And I was teaching. Along came kid number two, 7 years later. I call her my curveball kid because she like blew out of the water everything I knew about parenting. I thought, I have a degree in early childhood education. I've been a Montessori educator for all these years. I've found all these alternative ways to be like a really radical parent. And she was like, no, this is how I do it.
Okay.
She just like came out. That was one of her first full phrases that she said at about 2.5 years old. This is how I do it. And I really had to reimagine what it looked like to be a parent all over again. During that time, we moved from Vermont to Arizona. And so this is a stretch of how I got to this place of working with adults. What happened was I moved from working in rural Vermont, where I actually was running my own Montessori preschool from my home. And then
Okay.
it became a licensed center. So I had this beautiful program. But there's a lot of struggle in running a small business in Vermont, especially a small business focused
Truth.
on early childhood education.
Mm.
And then we moved to Arizona because my partner was going back to school. And suddenly I was the co-director of a Montessori program that was in an affluent neighborhood where parents were like competing to get their children into this program. I was paid an
Wow.
incredible salary. I had benefits. I was getting showered with preschool teacher gifts on every occasion you could imagine.
Hmm.
And it was like, ah, going back to Vermont feels like a nosedive for my career. I
Hmm.
want to impact the lives of children. I love this mission that I'm on to really serve children in this way. And yet it's a real struggle to do that in a rural setting. And gosh, look at the inequities in this system that families
Mhm.
with all this affluence can have this really high quality early experiences for their kids. And in lower economic situations like rural
Mhm.
Vermont, it feels really impossible. Um,
Interesting.
and so I shifted gears and I thought, yes, I have the opportunity to impact the lives of the 20 odd kids in my classroom. But when I go back to Vermont, we had always planned on coming back here. I thought, gosh, I might have the opportunity to impact the lives of thousands of children because there is a bigger picture on how can we really truly provide high quality early experiences for all children. So
Mhm.
the next 10 years of my career was dedicated to direct policy work.
Okay.
And I really began to have a lot of conversations with my colleagues in the early childhood field, have conversations with politicians, with leaders in education across the state about how can we really increase funding towards these critical moments in children's lives. This 0 to 5, we know the brain science is
Mhm.
now obvious, it's
Yeah.
proven how
Yes.
impactful these early years are, not just on children's social and emotional well-being, but on their physical well-being. There's
Mhm.
all these studies around adverse childhood experiences and when children are exposed to high levels of toxic stress, this can actually leaves the chances of them to be adults who have heart problems, diabetes, like all of these physical ailments can be tracked back to the amount of toxic stress you're exposed to in these early years.
And when you say toxic stress, are you talking about stress coming from lack of access to supportive childhood settings and maybe families that are struggling financially? Tell me more about.
Yeah, I don't have the specific like 10 points. I think it's 10 points in there's like an actual ACEs test you can take. It's really easy to find on the internet
Okay,
just to say,
gotcha.
what is my ACEs score, which is the acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. You can get a score, and the higher your score, the higher tendency you are to have these negative health outcomes. So I don't have them memorized, but it is
That's okay.
things like child abuse, lack of nutrition? Do
Mm,
you have a safe and clean environment to live in? Do you have nutritious food to eat? Are you
mhm,
exposed to homelessness,
mhm.
abuse? And what we know is that one concrete adult in a child's life can make the difference, right?
Okay,
Even if the home setting is volatile or there's a lot of uncertainty there, if that child still has a real primary teacher that they go to every day and an early childhood setting in which they can
mhm,
go to experience more consistent nurturing environment, like that can make the difference, right? They have just
yeah.
one relationship in their life. It might even be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or
Mhm, mhm.
a neighbor, right? Like even just one healthy relationship. So there's a new study called PACES, which actually then tracks what are the positive early childhood experiences
Oh,
that
cool.
can shift the dynamic of that outcome, right?
Awesome. I
And
like the
turn
idea of putting a solution next to the problem. That sounds good.
Yeah. And that's right where I am landing right now. That's where I want. So this is where my work shifted from working directly with children to working with adults. So first it was like talking about all these statistics, seeing if we could get policymakers to invest more money into the system. So now I've gone from impacting the lives of 20 children in my classroom to impacting the lives of thousands of children across Vermont.
By
Um,
working with the adults, you're saying.
by working on the policy. At this point I was really like
Ah,
working
ah.
on what are the bigger systems, how do we make sure that one human that's the impactful person in this child's life isn't also living in poverty, right? How
Yes,
do we
yeah.
ensure that person is feeling respected and recognized for their essential work or for their bachelor's degree or their master's degree for that matter?
Mhm.
Early childhood educators are still in the bottom 2% of all careers in the United States as
I
far as
know.
their income.
Gosh, right? Such an important
um,
space of influence too.
Yeah,
All right,
so
so it
that
was
could be a
you.
whole nother podcast. We could talk about
Yes.
that.
So
But
you
what
were doing
where
policy stuff and then
I
what?
was doing policy stuff, oh, there's two more important little mini stories here. One
Okay,
is my mom was diagnosed with cancer.
okay,
My second child, my curveball kid, had chronic pneumonia.
okay.
My own health started to tank
Mm,
because turns out doing policy work is also filled with toxic stress.
heard of that, yes.
I was completely burnt out. And that was a moment where like little things in my own physical health were starting to impact my life. Like I was like starting to park my car so I didn't have to like turn my head because my everything here was, you know,
Yes, yeah,
I couldn't even turn my neck. I was under so much stress. And I was like,
wow.
something has to give. But of course, it was my child's health that led me to actually find someone who did kinesiology, someone who was going to really, whose influence really shifted us again into a deeper aspect of holistic health to find relief for my child. But that was the first person who ever said to me, she said, have you ever heard of rescue remedy, Bach
Mm,
flower rescue remedy? And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Like I've been doing all this herbalist stuff. I know about Bach flower essence. I'll get some for her. And this person said, oh no, that's not for your child. That's for you, right? This was
okay.
the first person who was like, your stress is impacting your child's life.
Okay.
And dosing yourself with some rescue remedy, taking care of your own nervous system is actually going to impact the health of your
Mm.
child. That was the
I
first time I
just
heard that.
I want to just interject something here for anybody who's listening. So important for the adults, moms, dads too, to hear that there's a place for them to get what they need to get them grounded so they can be impact on their child's health. I
Yeah.
just love that because when we're looking at someone who's checking this out and looking at this, is this useful to me? I think, like you said in the beginning, when people are maybe new to having kids, or maybe they have a new family arrangement and they've got kids or whatever it is, to know that there's a place to go, whether that's you or any other resource they can
Yeah.
be introduced to, that's for them, that ends up being for the seemingly out of control scene with the kids if they're having health issues, emotional issues, school participation issues, like
Yeah.
where can the parents go? So sorry, I just
Yeah.
wanted to push that in there.
Thank you. And thanks for slowing it down a little bit, right? Because this is like one of the fundamental principles in my now being defined philosophy. It's like, how do we
Mhm.
slow down? How do we really just slow down, be in that moment, be able to nourish ourselves, do that self care so that we can then hold that grounded container for a child and everything that they're feeling and
Mhm.
experiencing?
And all the things that adults are juggling these days, like how do they get some backup for themselves?
Yeah. Mm.
Tell me more
Yeah.
about where this went for you.
Yeah. So there's a couple more bumps in the road. That was a really critical moment. And it wasn't too much longer after that that my mother's health really declined. And I actually left all of my work to become her full-time care attendant with my sister.
Mhm.
We worked on that together.
Okay.
And that's when there was another aha moment, a next impulse to like, wait a second, this idea of working with the adult and really seeing how the healing of the adult was so critical in my mission to work with children,
Mhm.
led me to find the Barbara Brennan School of Healing.
Okay, awesome.
And it wasn't until my mom did pass away and her father then also crossed over shortly after her that this is important because it feels like it was my sister and I call it pennies from heaven because we got this
Mm.
small inheritance. And I had one aunt who said, let this money change your life.
Mm. What a sweet thing to hear.
Yeah. And I had felt, oh, going back to school was like inaccessible to me because I had two kids to raise and I had this obviously chaotic life that I was living trying to do policy change and all the things. And it was like, let this change your life. And so then that longing for this deeper healing just it drove me to attend this 4-year program
Barbara Brennan.
and yeah, and receive a degree in Brennan Healing Science.
Okay, so do you want to explain to people a little bit about that style of work?
Sure. So I love to start by saying that my first mentor was Dr. Maria Montessori, who, because you just said that I was a Montessori teacher. This is now over 120 years ago that Dr. Maria
Mhm.
Montessori created this incredible scientific method of educating because she was not an educator, she was actually a scientist
Oh,
who
interesting.
used the tools of observation to observe children really with this bigger mission of like, how do we then impact the world?
Mhm.
That's a short about Dr. Maria Montessori. Then fast forward, now I found this new mentor, Dr. Barbara Ann Brennan,
Mm.
another female scientist with ideas far before her time,
Mm.
who is quoted, she was actually in, she was working for NASA. She was working in science as a physicist for NASA. And
Mhm.
she's quoted as having said she left the study of outer space to study inner space.
Awesome.
And she used the Western scientific method and Western scientific tools to measure and quantify the human energy field or aura, and
Mhm.
to give us a real map of the chakra system and the energy system as it relates to how our mental and emotional health is directly related to our physical health
Okay, let's
through the
talk about
map
that
of the
for
energy system. Yeah.
so mental, say that again, mental and emotional health. So when people are in a state with their mental and emotional health, it can actually have an impact on their bodies, their physical bodies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And this school of teaching was helping you assess those things and be able to have tools to work with those things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I like to say that like she provided a map. So it's
Mm,
like what we get to see when we start to understand the habitual patterns in the way we run our energy, it that gives us a lot of information about how that is then directly impacting our physical health.
awesome.
And then she also mapped out how that same energy in our habitual patterns impacts our lives in relationship with each other.
That would make sense. I
Mhm.
love a couple of her books where she shows diagrams of the energy fields around people and how their interactions are like either repelling or drawing in or hooking in, all these different energetic patterns between people that if you don't have a way of checking in to see what is there, you can be mystified about imbalances you might be experiencing.
Yeah, and they can live so far back in our subconscious that
Mm,
without the awareness, it can just feel like we're totally out of control. It can feel just, yeah, it can feel like a mystery or like something that is happening to us instead of something
mhm.
that we are actually participating in.
Got
And
it.
when we can have the awareness, when we can bring that into our conscious awareness, we can then start to have tools where we can impact it in a really intentional way. We can
Mhm,
actually choose consciously what vibration we hold in our
mhm.
energy field. So when I talk about this, I often say this idea of like vibe is a really common vernacular now. People use that term all the time. They're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I love the vibe of that place. Have you been
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
So great." Or, "Ooh, I do not like her vibe." We use these words all the time. And what we mean by that is vibe is short for vibration. It's an
Mhm.
actual vibration that we're feeling and we're picking up on. And the only way we learn about this in sort of our traditional education is through sound. We
Okay.
understand that sound is a vibration.
Mhm.
That, like, when you hit a gong, it vibrates, and that
Mhm.
vibration moves through space where we can't
Mhm.
see it. But
Yep.
when it hits our eardrum, we hear it.
Mm,
Everyone's, yeah, that's true. The electromagnetic field around all living things also sends off a vibration. It
right.
is an actual vibrating energy, like electricity is an energy that also vibrates. You can hear it humming if you get close to a power source. It's right, it's
Yeah,
in there
yeah, yeah,
vibrating. Well,
yeah.
we also have that energy that runs similarly as with a positive and a negative and has a flow that moves through and around our bodies,
I
and it
love that.
sends off a vibration.
Mhm.
And in fact, when you strike a tuning fork and it
Mhm.
begins to vibrate and you can hear it do its little bzzz,
Mhm.
you can bring a tuning fork next to it that has not been struck and it will also begin to vibrate just by being impacted by the vibration of the one that has been struck.
Okay,
And
so
for those
one
who
vibe
are listening and
affects the
maybe
other.
not watching, I'm shaking my hands like they're two
Mhm.
different tuning forks, and one is shaking. And when the one that's not shaking comes close, it also begins to shake. So,
Yeah,
our electromagnetic fields, the vibe that we're holding or the vibration we're giving off, impacts other people that come into our lives. And we can, in fact, intentionally choose what vibration we're holding or sending.
and that takes a little cachet of tools
It
because
does.
it's easy to say it and think it and have conversations about it, but then in the day to day where your boots on the ground, running all the things you're running and all the stuff you're up to, like tools to be able to catch where you're off and,
Yeah.
like you said, have a choice in the vibration that you are having for yourself, but also how it's affecting other people.
Yeah, exactly. And those tools, it's important to know what those tools are, but then to also practice them. It
Ah,
takes a lot of practice.
makes sense. Not
Hmm.
something you can just read and then it's good to go.
No, especially because I think a lot of the moments that we are quote unquote off or like we have these reactionary moments, they sneak up on us. They're
Mhm,
often in moments where we're not suspecting it. And then all of a sudden
mm,
something might catch us off guard or we're like, there's often this sharp in breath, like, ah,
mhm.
and then it's like off to the races with all the old patterns come rushing forward, like
Yeah.
because those are often patterns that were important for our survival in an when we were young. They were
Mhm,
important for our survival. They kept us alive, they kept us safe,
mhm,
or they kept us feeling loved and connected. And the habitual pattern to have those reactions come to the rescue is
mhm.
often automatic. But what happens is when those are no longer useful, but they're still taking over our lives. And they're
Mhm.
things that we say, why do I keep doing this? I don't want to be yelling at my kid all the time. I don't want to be fighting all the time or constantly shrinking away or running away from a situation in which I want to stay present and I want to be there, but I just can't. And I don't know why.
Mhm.
This is when these tools become really powerful.
Awesome. Yeah, because I think about parents or teachers who have a lot going on, everything's flying, and you
Mhm.
just need everyone to cooperate. So you get into this corner with trying to shove it through. I can imagine how if someone had an experience to pick up some of these tools or deal with some energy body imbalances in themselves and have the tools, that you'd be in a better space to, what's the word I'm looking for? Work through, like you said, the
Mhm.
unexpecteds, or I have an intention I need to see follow through. We're trying to get you to school, or I'm trying to get you through this lesson. And yeah, just I'm thinking about people in those situations and how this makes a ton of sense to me to be able to give them a platform to come from that's more effective for their own well-being, but then also how they're affecting or influencing how the kid's going to behave or respond.
Yes, yes. And to use one of the words you used earlier, it gives us a choice. Because so
Mm,
many times when we're in that position of like our back feels against the wall or we feel cornered in, that's
mhm.
often the moments when we feel like we don't have a, there's no choice in it. It's
Yeah.
this is the only thing we
Do
get
this
stuck with.
now.
Yeah. And then, and when we can have tools that give us this new perspective where we're like, oh, there is an actual choice here. There is an exit off of this horror ride, or there is a different door I could walk through here that might lead me closer towards my longing of really being in a peaceful, cooperative,
Mhm.
kind, and loving, closely connected relationship with this child, right?
I love this. Let me throw us into this direction a little bit. We have some time left here, but not a lot. But I
Oh,
wanted to, I know there's, we could talk forever, but I wanted to just see, how do you make what you have to offer? How do people get to have what you're offering? Like, how do you
great.
interface with these populations to be able to help folks that might be looking for some of these insights?
Thank you for asking that question because that gives me the chance to tell the very last bit of this story,
I love.
which is that after I attended the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, I actually went back to policy work because there's so much healing that's needed there.
Mhm.
And while I was doing that work, time passed, and lo and behold, here we were in 2020.
Mm.
And there was this thing that we now affectionately call lockdown, right?
Mm, that was a tough time for
And
early childhood
it
education.
it was such a tough time. It was a really tough time for parents. It was a really tough time for educators. And my phone was ringing off the hook.
Oh,
People were calling me and calling me. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And
mhm,
this is when, all alone in my kitchen in lockdown, like this had been starting to put some of it on paper, but it was like this was the final catalyst. It was almost like a panic because like people need this now. So I put
mm,
everything that I learned about early childhood development, everything I learned about working with adults and making policy change or personal transformation and change,
mm,
everything I learned from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing about energy and relationships and how that actually changed transformed my own parenting and my own
mhm,
relationships with my kids.
mm.
And I put it all into a 5 module course called Roots to Grow, Wings to Fly,
Okay.
grounded. And the subtitle is Grounded and Expansive Practices for Raising Amazing Kids.
Oh, cool. Say the name again.
Roots to Grow, Wings to Fly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
actually have a 5-part module of curriculum that people would engage with. And is this for
Yeah.
teachers or parents, or yes?
Oh, yes. So I've officially launched that course and my business 2 years ago. And in the last 2 years, everything's shifted and molded to figuring out like what do parents need? What do educators need so that we can really be with these unique children who have been through a unique amount of stress, right?
Yeah.
With families and educators also experiencing that same uncertainty and constant hypervigilance, right? This
Mhm,
constant feeling
mhm.
like we're looking over our shoulders, like, what's going to happen next, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so the course is just a small fraction of that, but I also do direct one on one coaching with individuals or with family units, as well as coaching and mentoring for educators. And that all led me actually to this somatic coaching certification, which has just really rounded out all the offerings that I have. For the last year, I put myself back in the trenches. I've been working in early childhood programs. I've been working in elementary classrooms. I've been doing private childcare for families. I've been working as a personal care assistant for children with special needs. I've been just like wanting to have all these different experiences. What are kids really needing right now? What are parents and educators facing? Like my own children now are ages 25 and 18. I have a lot of experience now with this like teen and young adult age group who've gone through the last 5 years of turmoil, but not a lot with this early childhood setting. So I put myself back in there. And what I found was that it was this piece around what are we practicing? What actual practices do we have? And does what we're doing day to day actually align with our longing for what we want with children? And this has brought me all the way back to a more like nature based approach,
Mhm,
recognizing that so much of what we see in the world as stressors comes a lot from, I guess, what right now I want to call like the artificial sort of technological world that we have
mhm.
created as humans, and
Yeah.
how so much of coming back to nature provides us with this. I'm watching it happen in you right now. You took a deeper breath.
Sure. Yes.
Like we start
Thank
to relax our
God.
shoulders, we start to
Yes.
feel a little more grounded.
Mhm,
And this idea of somatic coaching or a somatic experience is about what are we really feeling in our bodies?
mhm,
So bringing it all the way back to what is that? What are those internal sensations that are giving our mind, our brain, the cues?
mhm.
Am I safe or am I not safe? The body is where all these cues are picked up. And when the body senses us, again, that moment of, oh no, I'm not
Mhm,
safe. How
mhm.
can we return to that feeling of safety and trust as quickly as possible? Especially if the feeling is, my kid's going to be late to school, right? Is that life threatening? Not really. Like,
Yeah. Now, is that what you mean by somatic coaching? You're giving people the tools to notice. Soma means body, right?
mhm.
So the coaching is to help people be able to identify what's happening in their body. I'm not sure. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's about tuning into practices that allow us to pick up on our body's cues
Mm.
and then have practices that allow us again to be in more conscious relationship with our bodies so that
Can you
when
give me an example of how you might do that, like for yourself,
Mhm.
a situation where
Yeah,
you do something like that?
yeah, I can.
What does that look like?
Um, so let's see. I want to give you a parenting experience, a sort of experiential example.
Yeah.
So, and I might tie in a few things here because in my own experience, just the fact that it is November right now and we're going into this intensive holiday season. I know I'm going to see family, and there's all these external pressures. I feel it right now in my body. My stomach is starting to turn a little bit. Like I'm feeling this tension in my gut. I'm feeling like my shoulders are raising higher up to my ears. Like
I
everything
gotta
about
start
it is
Christmas shopping.
everything in my body is clenching, right? Like preparing for the blow. Oh
Mhm.
no, I have to talk to my uncle about politics. No,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh man, the left side of my neck is like crunching up again. Yeah, the in-laws are coming. Oh my gosh, all of these things. And then on the other hand, it says my 18-year-old's maybe she chose not to go to college this year, have a gap year, and she still lives at home. Like I have this one last opportunity to provide her with the magic of being at home and feeling nourished and relaxed and the everything that we dream the holidays can be is like, oh, this like sanctuary of togetherness and light and music and delicious smells.
Mhm.
And so there's tension in my body there because I'm like, my body right now is feeling all of this in the
Yeah.
gut and in my neck and shoulders. But when I think about creating magic for my daughter, it's my chest opens, I can breathe deeper, things relax. I feel that, oh, I just want to snuggle under a cozy blanket and be there with
Mm.
her. And but the reality of it is, like, when that time arises and she's sitting there on the couch and there's an opportunity to snuggle, as am I gonna go I'm gonna let my mind override that longing to be in that cozy magic with her? Or am I gonna override that longing and be like, "Oh, but the to-do list, I have things to buy, I need to clean the bathroom, the in-laws are coming, and the da 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 da." And so, like,
Yes.
right now in this conversation with you, I can practice by naming what I felt in my body, even just talking about the fact that my in-laws are on the way, and then practice what it feels like when I talk about this longing I have to be in the magic and the coziness with my kid.
So the somatic coaching is about getting people to notice what you're noticing. If you're starting to feel tight
Mhm.
and things are getting a little itchy, checking in with your body. What are you feeling? And then you have some tools to make a choice to bring your attention to somewhere else to release that so you can be present and make more of a choice of how you want to roll with what's happening.
Mhm.
Am I getting that?
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have room for a 2-minute example of one of those
Sure.
practices?
Yeah, let's do it.
Would you be willing to play with me with
Of
this?
course. Yeah, let's
And
do it.
do it with me? All right. So if you're listening, you can participate in this too by just finding yourself in a like comfortable seated position. So you just maybe make a few adjustments so you can relax a little into how you're sitting. And this brings together this piece I talked about with nature and with our soma, our body, and how we can, I call this meditation, become a tree. How can we become the healing power of nature in our own homes, in our own lives? And so,
Mhm.
this is like one of the tools that I teach that
Cool.
just provides us with the opportunity to practice what it feels like to be grounded, centered, open, and breathing.
Hmm.
Okay. So, as we're sitting here, finding ourselves comfortable, I want you to either close your eyes, or I invite you to close your eyes. I invite you to, or find a place to just gaze at the wall. I'm going to close my eyes right now. And if you have a favorite place that you walk, I invite you to imagine yourself walking there right now. And just in an instant with your imagination, bring up the feelings and the smells and the sounds of walking in this favorite place. For me, it's a beautiful forest with old growth pine trees growing up, and I can smell the soil and I can hear the leaves rustling through the trees and the birds. Just, I invite you again to just walk through this forest and look for the biggest tree. I call this the grandmother tree. There's
Ooh.
always one and often catches my attention. And in your imagination, just imagine walking towards this tree, creating a little contact with the tree by reaching your hand out and feeling the bark underneath your hand, taking a deep breath.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah. And just notice as you're sitting here with this wonderful tree, notice the bottoms of your feet.
Mm.
And I just wonder what it would feel like if you allowed the bottoms of your feet to grow roots that could reach down and connect with, commune with the roots of this great grandmother tree.
Mm.
I wonder what that might feel like. And I wonder what it might feel like as you feel your legs becoming this big, strong trunk and feeling the nourishment that those roots are drawing up your legs, up your trunk, all the way to your heart.
Mm.
And then just noticing if this grandmother tree offers you an invitation to now reach towards the sun, reaching your branches, the crown of your head up towards the sun. Feeling how even with the strongest of winds, this strong trunk is not only an incredible foundation and these deep roots are not only searching for nutrients, they also hold you strong and are able to be so flexible with this wind blowing. So you can feel the flexibility and the strength at the same time, feeling the sun and the water drawing in from your crown and your feet at the same time, and taking a breath there. And then in this meditation, I always give you a chance to just offer a little gratitude. I love it. Dr. Suzy already said, I love her. Just offering this to say thank you. Maybe you're a tree hugger like me and you want to give her a big hug or a kiss, or you want to offer a song, or even in your imagination, you suddenly have a gift to place at the base of her trunk. And you turn and walk away. And even as you walk away, you get to take with you this feeling
Mm,
of the deep roots, of the security of that, and the flexibility that this beautiful grandmother tree, who has lived probably for hundreds and hundreds of years, has to
you've
offer that
seen a lot.
wisdom. So you've offered a gift, and now you get to take with you these feelings that you felt as you imagined yourself in communion with this tree.
Mm,
And that's what I bring into my system when I'm suddenly in a rush, do all the things, right? The to-do list starts to override my longing to just slow down and be connected with my family. And that is a somatic experience because we can feel it in our bodies. And I'm wondering, Suzy, for you, did you notice anything in your body as you were connecting with that tree?
totally. I was fighting off a yawn big time because it was like making me relax. I'm like,
Yeah, that
my
yawn
my
is
body
so
wanted more
good.
oxygen. Just, oh, girl, you weren't breathing very deeply.
Mm.
Yes, that's great. And so when you think about one thing that I've noticed in some studies that I've been doing lately is if you have a tool like that and you do it often enough when you're not in the heat,
Hmm.
things,
Hmm.
when you are in the heat, you can bring it in really quickly. Like you don't have to
Exactly.
make everybody get out and get quiet for 2 minutes. You have an easy imagination access to that tree and the feelings that it brought. The more you practice that meditation, the quicker the resolve is accessible in a moment when you're having a
Exactly. And this is the kind of self-care that this is what I talk about. This is what I mean when I talk about self-care for parents. These are
Mhm,
the kinds of things you come to me, we practice these together. I have recorded meditations. We do this
mhm,
work when you're already, like you said, when you're already settled and carving out the time and the space for yourself.
mhm,
And that kind of self-care becomes the new habit. So when you're faced with a stressful situation, you can just with one breath,
you've got like
remind your
cellular
body of
memory.
that feeling. Yeah, exactly. That
Mhm,
cellular memory of it. And believe it or not, and this comes into the polyvagal theory, which we didn't circle back to, but the polyvagal theory talks to the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in our bodies, right?
mhm,
That
mhm,
connects our brain, the base of our brain, the limbic system that is constantly detecting, are we safe, are we not safe? Do we need to be in fight or flight, or can we be in rest and digest? Like these two parts that the brain can do.
mm,
And it's connected, the vagus nerve connects down to all of our organs, all our whole, every little sensing and detecting tool, little nervous system tools that our body has are all connected to this vagus nerve. And
mhm,
so therefore the body is actually the thing that is giving the brain the signal, can I be in rest? Can I be
mhm.
open hearted, connected, grounded, and present with my child? Or is it time to fight, run like hell,
Yes, yes.
or
Breathe.
hide? Right? Yeah.
Yes. The
And
tools, the meditative tools and that sort of thing, they can get the body to chill, which then gets that
mhm.
vagal nerve brain connection to chill, and you're a little bit more skilled in that moment.
Yeah, and then you have choice again, because then the prefrontal cortex can come online, and then we can really discern, we can make cognitive choices. We have, but when we're in those conditioned responses of trying to make ourselves safe, There's none of that. Like the actual physiological of our brain is we take off all the cognitive thinking. There's no time to think. It's just
Right.
save your life.
Get in the
And
car.
yeah. And
Yes.
so we,
Mhm.
and it's again, it's a way we can be in conscious relationship with those things instead of letting them just take over and be on
Mhm.
automatic and
Mhm.
be in these moments where the stress overrides our longing to really
Mhm.
be in connection.
I got it.
Yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful thing. Your years of experience and all the different not structures, but the different experiences you were having that shaped the tools you picked up and the different trainings you picked up to be able to offer something so concrete to parents and educators. And I love it that I know you care about those people deeply and it reaches
Yeah.
down into our youth and into our children who, like you said, if we can keep our kids in a great spot and help contribute to leaving a space for them to thrive, then it just carries on in the next generations and that sort of thing. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly the idea. And I love that you called them concrete tools because I know we talked about like energy and vibration, and some of these things can feel a little woo and like abstract and like what? But so much of the somatic coaching, especially this way that we can come back to our own bodies and really start to interpret our own sensations and feelings and emotions and put a concrete context into how will this work in my life, right? And that's where I feel like I have a unique way of really meeting people where they're at and helping them find tools that can work for them. If you're not into trees and like the thing we just did doesn't work for you, that's okay. I have so many more tools, and we can co-create tools that like really speak to you and that really help you find those resources in your life that help you feel connected and at ease, centered and grounded so that you can really live into again the longing that you have for the life that you want with your family, that especially if you're listening to Suzy's podcast, then you're really interested in holistic health. You want to lead a life and you want your children to be healthy, to thrive, to really have the opportunity to be their best self. So this is all about doing that in service for our children, but doing it for ourselves
Yes, it's kind
too,
of
right?
reciprocal. Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm so grateful for you. So grateful that you took time to come and talk to us today about what you have to offer for this very holistic
Mm,
approach to early childhood learning, also just parent-child relationships, and then even, like you said, even just the wellness for the person, the adult themselves. If people want to find you to know how to work with you, we're gonna put some notes below, but do you wanna share is it your website or how would people find you?
yeah. So my website is anahowes.com,
Mhm.
ANAHOWES.com. And that's a great place to start. I would say join the newsletter, sign up to get information about what's happening next. I'm really thrilled because again, my goal is to impact the lives of as many children as possible. So the more adults come to my programming, the more opportunities we have to hold this space for more children. So I'm offering a bunch of free stuff this winter, starting with coming right up on November 24th. I'm going to hold a free Zoom event called Reimagine the Holidays. So if
Ooh, that
you
sounds
relate to my experience that I just talked about, where the holidays get me all strung out and not actually living into the magic and the connection that I'm really longing for, then this
Mhm.
Zoom is going to be for you. It's November 24th at noon. We'll put the link to sign up for that in the show notes, but it'll also be right up on my website.
But
And then directly following that will be my 5-day challenge to slow down your parenting. Also a free event. This one's a little more asynchronous where you sign up for it, you receive emails and recordings that help you go through the tools, but you also get some of my real concrete handouts, like tools that you can put to use in your life right away, right at your fingertips. And a lot of those tools are ones that I do teach in my full course, Roots to Grow, Wings to Fly. And the other little thing I wanted to say is that I have just started my journey as a somatic coach. And I'm really just interested in getting people in the door, giving it a try. This link will also be in the show notes. If you want to give somatic coaching a try, or you just want to know what it is and you want to ask me some questions like, is this right for me? Your
Mhm.
first 15-minute session is free. So you can go right to the link and sign up, find a time, meet with me on Zoom. That's also virtual, and we can see if it's a good fit. Now, for those of you that are like, I'm in a crisis, I need Anna right now because I want to change my life with my kids for the better. I
Yeah.
also do deep dives with families. So you can reach out to me at annahouse.com and just say, hey, I need some help right now. And we can look at what it might look like for me to do some direct coaching with your family, to come in, see you in person, really do some deep work with your child if that's helpful. I like to customize everything to what the need is.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it is unless you ask me. And then I create more content based on what people ask. So the last thing I'll say is that if people are listening to this and it's like next spring, right? Is that I constantly having these opportunities to just come in, chat with me, free opportunities to talk about self-directed education or to talk about neurodiversity or to talk about what does it look like to resource myself as an adult and what does that health and healing look like. So just keep your eye out for those things. But a lot of
Awesome.
things like my 5 days to slow down your parenting challenge are evergreen. Like it'll always be there. You can just go
Awesome.
and find it, sign up, get those tools and get going. So
Love
I
it.
can't wait. I can't wait to hear from
Awesome. So good.
everybody.
So we'll make sure we have these links in the notes for this podcast so people can connect with you, go sign up for your newsletters, and just get in touch with you to see what you're offering. I appreciate you so much.
Oh,
Really.
I appreciate you so much.
Mhm. This is great. This really is right up my alley, targeting both children and adults with something that they can
Yeah.
have as a long-lasting tool in their hands, self-sufficient, looking for resources to support themselves. So thank you so much for being with us here today. And also for anybody listening, thank you so much for listening to Next Seven, this podcast where we focus on bringing awareness to health and vitality through clean food, clean water, and then access to functional healthcare, which I would say today, Anna, we're talking with you is really about the approaches to people's vitality and health. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, my pleasure. Mwah.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon and stay well, everyone.